board-certified holistic health and nutrition counselor, and I want to thank you guys for coming today. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about wheat and gluten and kind of what's the mystery behind it all. So what I'd like you guys to do real quick, and I know you know each other, but just kind of turn to your neighbor and I want you to tell your favorite bread product now, your favorite bread product when you were a kid, and if you kind of knew the effect that it had on you, how you felt after you ate it. So real quick, just introduce you. I know you know each other, but just share.
So bad about it.
Stop there for a second. Stop there. That's good bread product. These kids always think like sandwiches. That's amazing. I went to little pizza bagels when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, I used to make
Yeah, it's just mellow jam. That's a big part of it.
I love it. Does it make you feel so good? I was thinking cake right now. Cake anymore. Yeah.
I don't like Keri Bernstein.
Everybody have a chance to tell each other?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll tell you a little bit of personal history about me, and then I'd love to hear from you guys. So I was a carbohydrate addict. I lived on soft pretzels, lived on bagels. I loved it all. I was also a firm believer that I was not going to feed my kids anything white, so I gave them wheat bread. I thought, oh my God, wheat bread, that was fabulous when they were little at the time, and I thought, oh, well, I'm going to feed them really healthy. That's what I knew. That's what the media said, wheat instead of white, all that kind of fun stuff. But when I lived on my bagels for breakfast, I would have soft pretzels. At the time, I had 3 kids under the age of 3. So I was constantly running. I was constantly crazy busy with them. Never really had time to sit down and have a full meal myself, so I'd kind of pick off of their plate, grab a soft pretzel. But what happened was I would have that soft pretzel and I'd go like this, and then all of a sudden I'd drop down really quick and I'd get the shakes. And I thought, oh, soft pretzel's fat-free, it's, low in fat, I'm fine. And then I'd crave something else, so I'd crave probably like something sugary, so I'd have some licorice or some jelly beans. I constantly had like all that fat-free stuff in my car thinking I was doing myself great. But I'd constantly go like this. I'd eat it, feel great, and then drop. Get the shakes, I need to shove food down my throat really, really quick. Anybody ever experienced that? Where you're like, oh my God, I don't feel good, and you had to shove the sugar down your throat or the bread product in order to, and then I feel better again. And it was a constant battle, constant cycle. And I did learn how to break it, and it definitely took a lot of time, but I needed to change. Anybody want to share their favorite product or if they knew the effects that it had on them?
I guess when I was younger, pasta and French baguettes, I think we had almost everything, some sort of it. And I know I've never attributed it to that, but I had headaches all the time when I was young, all the time. And now I very rarely eat that stuff. I'll eat pasta once in a while, bread once in a while, but the headaches are definitely 90% better. I never, again, thought it was because of that. But
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's actually, you're right on. You hit it on the mark. Anybody else like eat anything like I did and constantly get that either high and low or get headaches or indigestion?
Well, it's not me personally. My little brother is just that side of the family is very unhealthy in terms of that, and my 14-year-old brother lives off of grilled cheese, cereal, Kraft singles, and bread, and it's horrifying. I mean, his energy levels is at 14 you're already going down the wrong path. It's a mess.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really kind of scary. So people think that they're eating well sometimes, and you're listening to the media, and you read this article and it says eat wheat, and then you read this article and it says don't eat wheat, or eat gluten, or go gluten free, or do this or do that. So I'm kind of here to solve that whole mystery behind it all, and my intention is once you leave here is to kind of get like a handle on wheat and gluten and how to incorporate it in your life or how not to incorporate it into your life. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the wheat and gluten. I need you to listen 100% as if your life depends on it, because it really kind of does. Your body definitely feels better when you consume healthy food. And it is no mystery whatsoever. When you eat well, you feel well, and when you eat like junk, you feel like junk, basically. Basically, our food goes into our stomach, and it gets digested, and it goes into our bloodstream. Our bloodstream is what creates, our blood is what creates our cells, our tissues, and even our thoughts, okay? We feel differently when we drink alcohol, when we drink caffeine, when we eat bread products, when we eat sugar. You feel differently when you can eat broccoli versus when you eat meat. You know, when you're set and eat a piece of meat, you kind of feel like that food coma, that lead in your stomach, versus, you know, you're eating all kinds of vegetables, you're feeling great. Okay, so it's not through willpower or discipline, but it's the sheer knowledge of the food that you consume that is going to help you. Okay, so let's talk about wheat. Wheat is to the food companies as nicotine is to cigarettes, because the more you consume it, the more you want it. Okay, there's a protein in wheat called gliadin. Okay, that gliadin protein actually acts as an appetite stimulant. Okay, so it makes you want more. So think about what I said before about the pretzel, or if you've eaten pizza bagels, or you've eaten pasta, or you've eaten that bread product. You want more. Your just body naturally wants more, and it is an appetite stimulant. So there has been studies that show that people that actually consume wheat eat 400 more calories a day than people that don't. Okay, and what happens is the wheat turns to sugar. Okay, and the sugar then gets consumed in your body. You get that spike, and then you get that drop, and then you get the spike, and then you get the drop. Excuse me. Sugar also turns into visceral fat. Visceral fat's that fat kind of around your belly. And it's actually the fat that's really dangerous for people, because it is the ones that cause the cancer, the heart disease, the hypertension. That's that fat around your organs, on your insides. Okay? I'm a firm believer that we really need to return to eating real foods, real healthy foods. Wheat today has been modified. So it's not like the wheat that our ancestors ate 50 years ago, because it was good. But now they're adding all kinds of byproducts in it and all kinds of junk in it in order to mass produce more, in order to sell more, and it's just not the same. We need to consume, you know, people stay away from it. I was one of the big ones that stayed away from anything that had fat, so I wouldn't eat nuts, I wouldn't eat oil, I wouldn't eat anything like that. But that actually is really, really good for your body. So the healthy oils, the nuts, the eggs, the lean protein, instead of consuming the wheat products. If you miss baked goods, which, you know, I heard chocolate cake over here, and I heard cookies, you can make healthy foods with good products. I actually have on my website, and I'll give you a card later, I make cookies out of chickpeas. I don't use any sugar in my baking, and I try and teach people that you actually can feed your children healthy foods. At my son's birthday was in college, and I make a cookie pie for him that he absolutely loves, but I changed it, and I made it completely out of chickpeas. I didn't include any sugar. I used natural fruits to sweeten it, and he loved it, and he consumed it, and he asked for more. So, you know, I know it works. He's 20, and he thought it was a cookie. So there's different ways to kind of go around that. Now let's talk about gluten a little bit. Gluten is the product that is found in wheat and rye and barley. And all those products, they are the refined sugars, okay? The refined grains. Now, it is actually gluten. It's the binder that holds it together. So I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to gross you out a little bit. I bought gluten just to kind of do a little experiment. And I did the experiment in this and washed it 3 times. And it still didn't come out. So it's just a little powder that they include in all kinds of bread products, in the baked goods. It even has like recipes on here for a loaf of bread. So I'm just going to take the gluten. I mix a little bit of water in here.
Is that different from flour?
Yeah,
It's just the gluten from the flour.
it's actually what's included in the flour, in the wheat. Okay? So, this is what it turns out to be. I can pass it around and show you guys in seconds. Okay, it kind of looks like Play-Doh. You see this? I mean, you can, it kind of, when I did it the other day, I showed my kids there, my daughter is in anatomy, and she said, ooh, Mom, it looks like the fat from the cat we're dissecting. And I was like, ooh, and it's like, this is right. Exactly. Now we're eating, right? It's like really kind of gross. And I'm telling you, I washed this bowl like 3 times. I still couldn't get it off the side of the bowl. So people are now going to gluten-free diets because of things like that. But people that have a gluten intolerance, they have a celiac disease, and it's actually an autoimmune disorder, that the gluten actually makes little tears in your small intestines. And that those tears actually make it so that good nutrients can't be absorbed in your body either, okay? So when people go, oh, go gluten-free because, you know, whatever, you don't necessarily need to go gluten-free, and I'll explain that in a little bit. You could have an intolerance to gluten where you feel bloated, or you have diarrhea, or you have gas, or you just, you know, have your headaches, you just don't feel right after you eat it. Then you know that you can, you know, if you eliminate the cause of that, then you'll feel better. So the extreme form is that your body doesn't absorb those nutrients that you need. But people talk about they're not going to eat any grains now because it's got gluten. So there are some really good grains for you that you can eat that don't contain gluten: amaranth, quinoa, millet. So you can eat grains. We talked about that the other day, about going grain-free and all that kind of stuff. Grains are actually really, really good for you. Many doctors warn against going gluten-free because you are eliminating, you know, people think, oh, gluten, it's in all the grains. You eliminate a food group from your diet, and you eliminate really good nutrients and minerals and things like that. But what happens is when people decide that they're going to go gluten-free, they go down that aisle in the supermarket and they see, oh, gluten-free pasta, oh, gluten-free crackers, oh, gluten-free this, gluten-free that, and they're like, oh, fabulous. But what they don't understand is that the ingredients that are used to substitute for the gluten are potato starch, potato flour, cornstarch, corn flour, all other kinds of names that you can't pronounce. Those are actually worse than the wheat themselves, because they cause your blood sugar level to spike really high and drop even more, okay? And again, that brings on that whole visceral fat, that brings on cardiovascular disease, and a whole slew of other problems, okay? So if you want to go gluten-free, if you want to avoid this, then you want to include legumes, you want to include beans, you want to include, you can eat the rainbow, you can eat everything just to avoid that. Obviously avoiding that, breads, pastas, starches, muffins, cakes, cookies, all that kind of stuff. So I talked a little bit about how to avoid eating that by eating your grains, and I want to, you brought it up about going grain-free, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about quinoa. Okay, everybody's heard quinoa, that's like the, you know, power word, the superfood. It actually is. It actually is not a grain though, it is actually a seed that comes from a leafy plant that's closely related to spinach. So it is a complete protein. So it includes, it is a complete protein because it's not missing the natural amino acid lysine, okay? So it's got a ton of protein in it, even though it is a carbohydrate. It's loaded with zinc, copper, manganese, magnesium, folate, you name it, it is loaded with tons of fabulous things for you. It keeps your blood sugar level stable. So even though it is a carbohydrate, if you serve it with dinner and mix it with some vegetables, I make bars out of them, and I can give you the recipes for that, and you can also eat it for breakfast in place of like an oatmeal or things like that, and add some fruit and some nuts and things to make it a superfood, okay? So can anybody relate to what I'm saying about how they felt after they've eaten the